Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Backseat VR Developer here on UploadVR.com. This is the show where we're playing all of our favorite new VR titles right alongside the developers that have created them. My name's Alex VR. I am one half of Between Realities, and the other half of Between Realities is right here. It's Skeeva. What's up, buddy?
Hey, what's happening, Alex? How are you today?
I'm great. I'm doing fantastic, especially because we're playing VR games and we've got the developer here, and it really doesn't get a whole lot better than that. So today's episode is all about Finger Gun. Oh, that's right. And joining us from the developers studio, Miru Studio, right? Miru Studio, we have Daniel Rodriguez, a game designer on Finger Gun. How you doing, Daniel?
Hey Alex, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you guys so much for having me. I
Yes,
can't wait to see how this goes.
thank you for joining us. It's going to go great, man. We're going to have a great time. We're going to yuck it up and chat about this really cool finger track or hand tracking. We almost want to say finger tracking, but it's a hand tracking experience, and it's one that I would say has gained a little bit of traction. So I'm excited to show it off to people and have the developer kind of tell us a little bit about what we're getting ourselves into. So right here, this is kind of the scene that you spawn into when you launch the game, and we noticed that the tutorial is actually behind us. And Daniel, you think it's probably a pretty good idea that we do the tutorial first, right?
Yeah, I guess for people who are not experienced or familiar with the game, it's a good way to get a pretty good idea of what to expect from it. It's also a good opportunity to explain why we gave it so much of a tutorial because compared to other, Finger Gun, first of all, is an endless wave shooter. Um, but it has quite a bit more of a tutorial that you usually expect for one of those.
Okay.
And it's because since we were so focused on, okay, how do we do an action game for hand tracking, and we're gonna be doing a lot of stuff that people haven't done before with their hands. People are not usually as aware of what they're doing with their hands as specifically as we need them to be for what they're gonna be doing in the game. We really put a lot of time and effort into really giving them space to get into hand tracking as a thing, because most people we expected wouldn't be familiar with it, and B, learn the game mechanics. So right now, this is what you would actually see if you open the game for the first time. Um,
Okay. Got it. And when you guys, I mean, how long ago did the development cycle start for this game? And was it like the dream from the very beginning to be like, yep, we are making a hand tracking game? Or did you kind of come to that conclusion?
I wasn't there for the very beginning. I came by when we were about to start actual production of the game. The game had been in pre-production for I think a bit less than a year when I came in. I came in about March of 2021. So at some point in 2020, the two founders start who were the ones to start it all. Um, had the idea, came up with the idea, made a prototype, and just went from there. They had been doing a lot of research and prototyping and all of that, and then we actually got into production about April of 2021. Um, so yeah, it was about a year of a bit over a year of actual production.
Got it.
I feel like this is such a no brainer for a hand tracking game because everyone in the world has done this. Like, if you know what I mean? Like, everyone knows what that is. And now, when you do that, a gun comes out of your finger, and it's like, that's nuts. It's such a cool idea. So cool.
Yeah, I mean that was the whole where it came from. It was like from what the founders have told me. It was like they experienced the tech when it just came out. It was very experimental, but they were like, yeah, we gotta do something with this. This is amazing. Um, and that specific aspect that everyone knows this is like a blessing and a curse at the same time, design wise, because everyone knows what it is, but everyone also has expectations of how it should work. Uh,
Uh,
but not everything is actually viable for gameplay reasons, for tracking reasons. So that's kind of why we also you already knew how to play, but the tutorials we iterated on them so many times to just try to figure out what the best way was to get people to actually understand what we wanted them to do with their hands.
mm-hmm.
And getting to what people should be doing with their hands wasn't easy either because like most people think of the tracking issues. Like you really need to get people to do the right things for it to be tracked. But
Yeah.
tracking has improved quite a lot since we started. Um, some of the other bigger issues were actually just the accessibility and the comfort of doing it. Like if you're not doing the right things with your hands are not used to doing so much that precisely, and it can give you a lot of muscle fatigue if you with a lot of like different movements. So for example, a lot of people naturally want to shoot like this, and if you do that for more than like 5 minutes, you hand is gonna be in pain. It's gonna be in
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
full
Okay.
pain. So we ended up landing on this. For anyone who hasn't played, so you're touching with your thumb your middle finger, and you can actually touch at any point of your middle finger. So because also people as they're in the game, they start forgetting about their hands, which is something that we wanted. We wanted people to get into flow very easily. After all, this was like we really wanted to achieve that childish and also like very playful fantasy, but have it be like approachable for adults. At the end of the day, we're playing on nostalgia, and most of our audience are gonna be adults. This is VR. We're not on a place where we can just be doing kids games. Yeah, and it's not really
Right.
what Fingergun was, but we really wanted to play on that nostalgia and just bring that fantasy to life. So it was in many aspects, not just mechanically, also the art style and all that. A long journey, and I've gone in like 3 tangents since I started saying whatever I'm saying, but finger guns. Yeah,
I think you've landed on something good because, when you're doing this kind of thing, people aren't really thinking about like if I'm gonna like finger guns at you just like in a fun conversation or whatever, I'm not really thinking about like the tactileness of firing a shot out of my hand. I'm just pretending, I'm just like moving it backwards, but this wouldn't be a viable way of sending a bullet out. So but reaching down and touching my thumb there gives me that, like, it's almost like a haptic confirmation, it's almost like incorporating haptics into the movement, so to speak. Do you know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, you gotta use your left hand. Sorry.
Hey Alex, can you just show us real quick before you go on? Like, so the Quest chops off a little bit of the hand, so it's really hard to see. Can you kind of put them up in front of your face? Yeah, and just kind of show us those animations and stuff.
Yeah, here,
You gotta
get the gun.
past that. Yeah.
So you go here, and it immediately, like, if I don't hold my hand like that, I just have hands here.
Yeah.
But when I close these fingers down, this turns into my index finger turns into a gun, and then it's dropping my thumb right there. You see when my thumb touches my middle finger, that's when the shot comes out. So it really does almost have like a haptic response because my thumb is looking for my index finger to touch,
Nice.
rather than just like floating here in the middle of the air. And then this is a cool
Yeah.
effect too, with the throw and then the rope grab. I like that.
Yeah, so you gotta. I think you did it before, but you can also execute the enemies with a grappling hook. So when you see that they're low health and there's blinking lights, yeah, so you make a fist and you have the module on your hand right away, and that you gotta plug it into your forearm. There you go. So okay, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, there is.
The feedback. So we actually like to call that it's a way overkill name, but it sounds really cool. Like biofeedback. It's what we usually refer to
Nice,
it as.
yeah,
So
that
it's
works.
like using your own body.
Biofeedback.
Get it? And it actually was part of the design of like all of our tracking, like hand tracking mechanics. So we from the beginning knew that we didn't want to make just something that felt like you were like magically inputting just basically magic gestures that are basically the same as a button press. We wanted you to feel like you were actually interacting with the world and like physically there.
Yeah.
Because most of the experiences that we're doing interesting stuff with hand tracking was like Walls of the Wizard, for example. Awesome implementation, especially for how early on it was. But it was basically you're doing controller stuff with your hands.
and we've got some really like bright lights in the room that are facing at me, which I can tell are kind of like limiting my tracking accuracy with my left hand. But know everyone that before we started this recording, we had the lights in a less advantageous spot for shooting, and it was in a better spot for the tracking. So hand tracking is one of those things where it's like kind of finicky, and like you really do need almost like optimal environment situation for it to like really track well, right?
Yeah, we have found two main factors to be like the issues at people's home, like at your regular environment. Most people have good enough lighting at any regular place, but the two main issues are usually either windows, so an open window can mess up the tracking a lot because there can be stuff going on in the background. There can be a lot of lighting that just messes up with the tracking, or monitors or TVs that are turned on, or like table lamps, because if there's a bright light behind your hand, it's gonna make the headset not be able to tell where your hand is.
Right. And that's basically what's happening with me right now. I have a bright light right there.
Yeah.
So like if I turn off to my right like this, it tracks a lot better.
Yeah, and what a pain, right? Because the success of your game depends on how well Meta can implement this hand tracking, right? And if I would assume, and from what I've heard from other hand tracking games, is people if people have a hard time with the hand tracking itself, it reflects on your game, and sometimes it comes across in their reviews because they don't understand the difference. Just like when you go to a restaurant and the chef messes up the food, but you give all the slack to the server, right? It's kind of one of those scenarios.
Yeah. So it is a pretty tricky position. It's kind of part of working with such like experimental tech, call it like that. But I don't know. I think it's really worth it. Like most people seem to have been having a pretty good time, and we're trying to work into the game tools that I might be saying too much. Sorry if I am, but we're trying to figure out a way to build into the game tools that let players know if there's any issues with their environment, which is hard to do. We can't, before it raises any red flags, we cannot get any info from your pass-through or anything. Like we cannot look into your room, but we're trying to figure out ways to build tools for players to look at the rooms and highlight for them, like, hey, this might be giving you a hard time with tracking. You might want to look into this, or letting them know, hey, you might want to avoid open windows, or make
Great
sure you don't
idea.
have any
Yeah,
lights.
nice idea.
It's still very experimental. We're trying to figure out a good way to add it into the game without creating a ton of friction for players. But we're definitely looking into that. Hopefully, we don't even have to. Hopefully, the tech gets way better with time, which is what usually happens with these things. But we definitely see the impact of it. But most people have been having a pretty good experience in our reviews, at least so far. But you can totally see when someone didn't have a good time with tracking, and it's very unfortunate. It's like, yeah, man, we want you to enjoy the game. We hope, we wish you could enjoy the game. Just not a whole lot we can do about it.
So these shields that are spawning, those are like to prevent me from getting hit by them, right? Like that's a good thing.
Yeah, those are good. There's in this level there are no enemy shields, so you won't worry too much about it. And there's only one enemy in the game that has shields, and they're attached to him, and you can tell very well that they're part of him. So
nice.
It should be quite clear.
So
I really like the automatic weapons. Those feel great.
So right now we're playing this on the Oculus, or the Meta Quest 2. Sorry, still hard to call it the Meta Quest. But the Meta Quest 2, we're playing this with the hand tracking features. There are no controllers involved, as you can see. Are there any, can you play this on any other platform? For example, the Valve Index with the finger tracking controllers, or are there any plans on implementing this on any other headsets?
So the game's currently only out on Quest, and we are looking into porting the game to other platforms. There's nothing official yet, but it's definitely something that we're looking into. The main
Right.
issue here is obviously the hand tracking. For PC VR, for example, there's no standard for hand tracking, and the Index has a version of finger tracking, but it's not quite the same. Um, so can't make any promises for PC VR right now. We definitely want to bring the games to as many platforms as we can. It's all about the hand tracking standards and where it goes.
Right. Nice.
Does Pico do hand tracking?
Sorry?
Does the Pico do hand tracking? The Pico headsets?
The Pico Link 3, no, not. They don't do it that I'm aware of.
Yeah, so I think that stuff's all coming, right? It's coming to the Vive Focus. It's actually on the Vive Focus 3. I don't know. I don't think it's as good as the Meta Quest, right? They've really, Meta has really put a lot of research and development into making their hand tracking awesome, and they continue to make it better and better. But everyone is looking into hand tracking, right? So eventually this will be a game that we can, that I'm sure that you could probably bring to other platforms, but Meta is probably the leader right now in this type of technology.
Yeah, they've been like updating the tracking a lot and changing it and improving it. Hands 2.0 was a huge change. Um, Great for some things, other things were kind of problematic. So, for example, everyone knows Hands 2.0 gave us way better overlapping
Occlusion.
detection,
Yeah.
occlusion detection, uh, but it also stabilizes a lot of the data.
Yeah, like the
So,
jitteriness.
for example,
Yeah.
but so you can't do this anymore. You literally can't do this if you try. The hand will just look like this, which is not a problem for us specifically, but also for us one of the bigger like downsides of Hands 2.0 was that if you shoot too fast with small movements, we were used to be able to detect that very well. But now if your movements are too small, they just get stabilized and the finger just stays still. So it's probably better for most players. It enforces like good, healthier playstyles. But it's a bit of a shame. Like hardcore players used to be able to shoot way faster.
Oh yeah, so I'm sure you must have to try to communicate that with your players, right? That you have to exaggerate your thumb movements probably a little bit more for this to work as well.
Yeah, so it all went into to how we present everything to the player and how we show you the poses in the tutorial. And then it's also part of the sign of the gun itself, how we want you to shoot. So when you bring the gun out, you gotta have your thumb high, and then there's an actual trigger on the gun that implies you how high we want you to bring your finger up, and you're gonna be pulling it down. The trigger's entirely aesthetic, like there's not actually any logic going into how far down you're pulling it to trigger it. The thing that triggers it is just the act of touching your own finger, because that's how we found you can shoot assist bullets, yeah, and you can use your grappling hook to explode that.
Nice.
We wanted,
Cool.
we wanted have to go again. We wanted the boss fight to be a bit of a change of pace
Yeah, I
to
like that.
how it actually goes. Because I mean, and that was a big thing of the whole combat loop. It was this is a lot of fun once you get used to it. Like you can get into a flow state and just like have a blast shooting.
Yeah.
But it gets tiresome if you do it a lot too frequently. So to try to balance it out, we added the whole grappling hook and the whole loop of getting new weapons through the enemies to actually be better at killing them. So any weapon is always going to be better than the revolver, and that was a to kind of sorry, I unconsciously dodge myself when I see someone playing. Um, so that was to give players a bit of a break and to also make the game a bit different because we knew it was going to be like we know it's a wave shooter. We know people have seen a lot of wave shooters, so we didn't want just the hand tracking to be the gimmick that made the game. We wanted to actually be a different game experience for players.
Yeah, the
And
grab is clutch. That's crucial. I feel like adding that into the like the motions is awesome. It's a great addition, and I love to be able to like, like grab them and grab rip them. Like it feels really good.
So,
Glad to hear that.
so as you develop this game, right? I would imagine that you're in this, playing this a lot, and your whole team probably is. Are your thumb muscles just jacked? They're probably huge, right? Just from doing this
look
all
at me
the time.
flexing
Oh yeah,
right
look
now.
at that.
Oh,
Look at that. You have
oh,
muscles
yeah.
in your thumbs. Amazing.
No, but you really, it's very interesting that at this point I can literally play for like 6 hours straight with no trouble.
Wow.
But the first time you play, if you play for like 20, 25, 30 minutes, which is a couple of runs if you're starting out, you are gonna get a bit sore, which happens with any physical activity, like any kind of physical activity that you're doing that you're not used to doing. It's gonna get you a bit sore. But we really wanted to make sure that it wouldn't injure the players. Obviously, it was like huge. Like whatever it is that you're doing cannot be harmful to the players.
Yeah.
Um,
Say that to
so
Beat Saber.
I mean,
people kill themselves playing Beat Saber.
but if you're playing the official levels at the official difficulties,
There is a flow
on
to them. That yeah, I feel
the
you there.
technical space you're supposed to be having, you should be okay.
Yeah, I feel you. But like I just
but
I push myself when I play that game. You know, like my arms are burning after a Beat Saber session.
I mean the one of the things that people comment a bit about finger gun is that we went for like dodging enemy bullets, which is something that hasn't been as common recently, which is very common in the early on. But again, it was part of all the design decisions that were based on, okay, we want you to feel like you're physically in this world. Okay, so we
Right.
wanted it to be immersive, but it's also part of getting into that childhood fantasy. We don't wanted it we didn't want it to be about covering or anything. It's like just go all in and blast some enemies.
So what should
Um,
I do here? Can I like upgrade or something?
okay, so this is basically an info place. So if you grab any of those, uh, just grab it. It's gonna tell you a bit what it does, how it works, and also who gives it to you.
I
So
see.
you can see the enemy that drops it and what it gives you. It was a bit to let players know what else is left in the game. You can also turn them around and see a bit more in the menu. And then,
Oh, I see.
yeah. So we have everything here, but the most important things we wanted to have here, if you go to the nets page, was the enemies, because they give you a good idea of how many enemies are left, but also really getting to know how each enemy works is how you manage to get pretty far into the game. And as I said, it's endless, but the once you're like at a high level of the game, a run can last. I've had like 45-minute runs, 50-minute runs,
Nice.
and because it's very physical and the enemies, all of the enemies are designed to like make you move or act in a certain way. So being aware of how they attack you, it's very important. So for example, this guy is very simple. He just shoots directly at you at a low frequency, one bullet. So that's very simple. But if there's a lot of them, it's gonna get messy. And it's very simple to dodge him because you know he shot exactly at where you're at. So if you hear him shoot, it doesn't matter if you're not seeing him. If you know roughly where he shot from the audio, you can totally dodge that bullet without ever looking at it. You just know, okay, I cannot be here for the nets X amount of
So
time.
this one
You get
stays still after every movement and attack. So you can like wait till it's done attacking, and then that's your opportunity to strike.
exactly. Um, this guy only opens up when he's gonna attack, so you know that you're not in trouble while he's moving until he's gonna, and you know when he's gonna attack. And then the other guy doesn't shoot until it gets all the way to you, and it moves faster the longer it's been moving. But if you hit it just like once, it stops and the speed has to build back up. So you can just
See
keep
that?
him far away without actually caring, because it's very tanky. But you can just keep him
Nice.
far away, for example. That could be your strat, and then you don't have to worry too much about him as long as you're keeping him back.
So I'm
And
looking for
then
a new enemy here and a new enemy here, right? Like these
yes,
two are gonna get unlocked as I continue.
yeah, the next one is the one with the shields. So 4 shields project out of him, and you have to break all of them before you can hurt him, or you can try to hit the enemies behind him. It's always gonna move to try to be in front of other
So
enemies.
and now
Oh,
these
and these are the
are the
upgrades.
augments for the weapons.
Yes, these are the ones that you get throughout the match. This is a system was both to give depth and replayability to the game, but also to give you a bit of a reward and a progression feeling throughout the run, and to let you rest. Like rest without knowing that you're resting was a very important thing. We want you to feel like you're
Yeah.
destroying your enemies, but giving you rest for your hands to properly like reset and relax before you're going again. Because again, this gets pretty intense once you start getting into
So
high rounds, once you train a lot.
do you have a strategy that you like when it comes to like choosing your cards?
So there's a couple of builds, depends on what you're trying to do with that run. For like new players, I recommend going with a lot of AoE, because at the beginning you're gonna have a lot of enemies and you're not gonna know how to deal with them a whole lot. So the blue cards and red cards are gonna be your best friends. The blue cards are the electric cards. There's different slots that each card goes into, and then there's one colored card for each slot. So the like right here, um, okay, this is the only blue card that doesn't give you AoE, but that one's gonna stun enemies. So that one's pretty good. Um, so blue cards and red cards give you quite a bit of AoE and crowd control, because
Nice.
the blue card electrocutes enemies.
Can you just
So when they're
let
electrocuted,
the audience know what AOE is?
our area of effect. So it's that causes damage in an area or affects an area, affects multiple
I hope
enemies.
our audience knows what an AoE is.
I mean, it depends on the kind of player a lot and what games you play. They also call it different by different names depending on the genre.
So
But so
now,
this one,
can I have multiple blue cards up here, or is it only one that's gonna be in
you,
effect?
you can have multiple of the same like color. The color is just like the category to give you an idea of what it does. But if you look at the icon on the card, that tells you what slot it goes into, and you can only have one card per slot. You can upgrade the card on that slot, and you can replace it for a different one, but it's gonna be going back down at one level. So if you commit, you're rewarded by getting higher level cards.
Do you
And
have any future plans for this game? Any kind of system for skin unlocks, or just expanding the general gameplay of this, adding new levels, anything like that?
yeah, so we've been updating the game since it came out. Um, at the beginning, every week we've slowed down a bit because we were mostly like trying to improve player experience. Um, but because we were trying to, once the game came out, we were getting a lot of feedback about how the tracking was going, how the experience was for players, and we try to polish that quite a lot. I think we made some pretty like huge changes that are gonna make it a lot more enjoyable for a lot of people. But now we're getting to that point where we're finally comfortable like adding more to the game, um, and we're working on new features for the game too. Right now, we're focusing on enhancing um, endless wave mode. So I can't go into what the actual updates are yet, but we definitely have quite a few things coming that we're working on to make this experience even more and better, and let players enjoy more what we already have here.
Nice. We're almost there, Alex. How you feeling over there? Are you liking this?
I'm feeling like a sharpshooter, bro. And when I first started firing in like the main room, the first thing I noticed was like the aim assist, and I think I'm happy for it. I imagine you guys probably had quite a few iterations of the projectiles, like how much it helps you and all of that. How did you decide on where you are with that?
Yeah, so this one's actually gonna good example right here. If you look at the okay, never mind.
It's gone.
That one had the same icon as the one that you already had, so it's gonna
Yeah.
replace the one that you had. Um, but I mean, they're all pretty good. This one's like the purple ones, the shield ones are more like utility, very use case specific. So I don't recommend them a whole lot for new players. But their purpose makes more sense as you go on. There was a question I was gonna answer.
Oh
And I
yeah,
got
it was.
distracted.
How did we decide
Oh,
on what level of auto aim assist there's going to be?
so the amount of aim assist itself, it was just testing, trying to find a place where it wouldn't be too much to where you wouldn't be shooting. We wouldn't be giving you positive feedback for doing a wrong action. So if you're aiming too far away from a target and it goes to a target, you're not going to be learning where you should be aiming. And that means that as the game progresses, and this like positive and negative feedback is massive to train players with hand tracking, because people are not used to being this aware of what they're doing with their specific fingers. So we try to get a sweet spot where if you were roughly aiming at a target, we could say, okay, yeah, they them know what they want to target and are roughly like around the objective. But one thing that we did know from the very beginning was that we had to have quite a bit of aim assist, because even if you hold your hand perfectly steady, like laying on something, the tracking is not going to be steady. You can try it, like once you're outside of the match. No matter how steady you are, the tracking is always going to be like moving quite a bit. So we knew that aiming and accuracy was not going to be where the challenge came from, and that's why that's where we started when we came up with the whole combat loop of, okay, let's have the enemies have weapons that you can acquire and have the grappling hook, and be focusing, like, combat is way more about seeing the array of enemies that you have in front of you and saying, oh, that guy's gonna do that, that guy's gonna do that, I probably want to get this weapon so that I can tackle that, and then
And
focusing on
that's why
that. And
you
then you
have this here, so people can kind of plan accordingly and know how they want to build their abilities so they can deal with what these guys do.
Exactly. So it's all about target priority, and that's why all the enemies are like extremely simple. They do one very specific thing. They threaten the player in one very specific way, and you defeat them in one very specific way. And that way you can really quickly, because we don't want you to be like strategizing during the game. It's still like we want you to get into flow really quickly. Um, but the your tactics matter quite a bit. So it's about developing the right tactics to deal with the situations, and then you just know, oh, okay, so this is the shield guy. I should try to get the shotgun early because the shotgun's gonna instantly get rid of the shield. And then when you're seeing like different combinations of enemies, you start learning how to best react to them.
Nice.
And yeah,
Nice.
that's how we try to make it like different, special.
Well, that's
Past
great. I
the
appreciate that.
game.
You know, like I'm a gamer through and through. So whenever there's like a little bit of depth, you know, gives me an opportunity to do a little bit of strategizing and stuff, I am always happy for it. So, you know, this is it, guys. This is Finger Gun from Miru Studio. It is it's a blast, and you can just drop your controllers and pick up your hands and just go crazy and learn the strategies that there are to be found in this game. I want to thank Daniel again, Daniel Rodriguez from Miru Studio, game designer on Finger Gun, for joining us today, my friend. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun for me playing a game. I hope it was fun for you as well, Skeeva.
It was a good time, and I can't wait to get in and play more of this game.
All right, well, let's make it so you can do that. Thank you for watching, everyone. Backseat VR Developer here on UploadVR.com. Again, we're Between Realities. I'm Alex VR.
And I'm Skeeva.
And that's that. Enjoy your day, everyone, and we will see you for the next episode next week.
Bye-bye.